Team Freedom miraculously has brought us all the way to game number 5 after losing the first 2 games to Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm at their height, their power, their prime, after losing to 2 teams in week 2, coming all the way back up to now. They're the head boss, but Freedom are not going down without a fight.
Yeah, and after, you know, the Warhead game, the 9-minute win in their favor, it's at the point where it's like now, you know, they feel like they've kind of opened the floodgates, and they're a little bit more upset. That was a very beautiful game coming up from them on towers, and so I'm ready to figure out where we're going to be going for Game 5 as soon as possible.
I've been convinced by Tempo. You've now been convinced by Freedom. It's ready to let just the amazingness of Game 5 happen. It will be on Tomb of the Spider Queen, chosen by Team Freedom.
All right. Does anything stand out here?
Genji plus Diva is an immediate thing that Team Freedom would love to get their hands on, although I doubt that happens. They've also pulled out some Nazebo. They've played some Chromie there too. Tempo Storm for Tomb, they've played quite a lot. They've only lost to Gale Force out of their 4 games on Tomb. Playing a lot of Malfurion. Malfurion is really big to Tempo Storm here in the early parts of the draft. Also Genji as well. And then you can't forget, you can't rule out the Kael Thas pick for Tempo on this battleground.
That's a good point. Tempo Storm has felt comfortable flexing Psalm over onto that range. But the Stitches ban? Are they assuming the Anubarak ban still that we've seen in this position? That's a pretty clever ban.
That's a change up.
At least it's making Freedom second guess themselves. So now does this mean that you go into the Anubarak or no? You just let it go over? Or the Arthas, Primary Warrior or something, now that you banned out the Stitches? Gonna be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed. The fact that it's not just even an insta-lock. Yeah.
Maybe it was just trying to bait Uther Sill.
That ban on the Stitches has to be something about trying to force someone to commit to Warriors a smidge higher, which is what they get. Anubarak is picked up for Freedom. So how does Tempo intend to capitalize? What did they want in this transition that they thought would give them such a big upper hand over that of Freedom?
That would have been a Stitches Genji. Stitches Genji otherwise.
Yeah.
So it just, to me, seems like it's the Stitches.
It might be. It's a better map for Stitches, too. I mean, that could be the case, that they objectively just think it is the Stitches is too powerful overall.
They'll know that Team Freedom goes into Anubarak. Stitches, Anub doesn't give the same type of wave clear the Stitches does.
Not near as effective into the delay, unless he goes into that bed of barbs. Then he suddenly can be a bit of a
nuisance.
Doozy was where
he
I was
can really
headed.
bug you.
Yep, we can just drop the mic there. The Haka Arthas is where Tempo wants to move. Taking 2 very strong solos and removing what traditionally would be appealing frontliners to be able to match into that. So do we see another ban to try and isolate that solo a little bit more? Solos are so uncommon on a map like Tomb in modern day North America, though. There's
what you doing, Freedom?
Ring around the rosy here with these picks.
What would that solo be? Have we seen Freedom play Malthael yet? I'm looking.
Gonna say...
I don't think so.
No, yeah.
They banned Greymane, which I thought they would want, versus a double warrior with Cursed Bullet.
It's very apparent that they're gonna pick Cho'Gall for themselves. That's why, Gilly, you banned the Cursed Bullet, because Cho'Gall is gonna be the next pick, and then you're one sad Panda. Or one happy Cho'Gall, I guess.
Like, I love seeing that upping the ante. Freedom bans Greymane, Tempo Storm ban Li Ming, which means that Tempo Storm have in mind some range that they don't have any fear that Freedom's gonna pick. Because Freedom have the next 2 picks. So this is complete.
Call out isn't the word.
Yeah, it's definitely we are more flexible than you are. You have to take a warrior if we ban your Stitches away, and your Stitches are the strongest. It's taking away all of the tier 1s, like you suggested.
Yeah, I'm putting them on awkward tier 2s. And suddenly, comfort falls out the window. You know, it's weird because like making one player uncomfortable can really be the make or break for some teams. But in general, I would say making 3 players feel slightly awkward is better than making one feel horrible. A lot of the times when it comes to competitive, because you have so much synergy and reliance like that, most of the time weakening 2 players is way better than really hurting one. And Tempo's kind of doing that right now into this draft. Last 2 picks. They've got a lot into the solos, but when taking the Dahaka and the Arthas, their front line is amazing. It's just what backliner? Lunara already gone. Greymaine's taken away, and the Li Ming. Alarak, not where I thought we would go, and the Gul'dan made a bit of sense considering it's on Tomb, and we've gone so far into the ranged role. Somebody needs to have that wave clear, but man, we're going to have Psalm on Alarak for a triple melee composition, and for Tempo Storm. It's going to be the answer to the double support.
D.Va!
D.Va!
She's back! Tempo Storm had to recognize, or had to know that D.Va is very likely to come out here.
Yeah.
So their Alarak Gul'dan, they believe, is the answer to D.Va and Genji. Is it enough?
I think so. I normally am not a guy who supports Alarak, but I really do think so. Mainly talking about that lack of comfort. I do think D.Va is a great hero, and obviously Freedom is one of the best D.Va players that we have in North America. But like between the Genji and the Anubarak, they do have a bit of lethalness into their 4-man, but D.Va, how their 4-man and laning phase is going to interact with that of Tempo Storms, with the lethality they have between their 4, they have really good ones, which means they can pretty much run any version of a laning phase and get away with it. And the biggest problem with it is they'll probably beat you in the wave clear, and they definitely beat you in their kill potential. So you're like really playing for that mid game, that later stages of the game aspect. And if that happens in Freedom's on even footing, I really feel like they can get it. But I do expect Tempo to pull ahead in the early stages of the game, and sometimes that's all that matters. As long as Tempo doesn't waste gems, I'm a Tempo fanboy for this game.
I'll tell you what. I guarantee you Nasmus will play that D.Va a little bit differently and not get hit by a drag and pulled back in and then all of a sudden come out of the mech, because you're going to have an Alarak combo behind that and you will be a dead D.Va. It is time for game number 5 between Team Freedom and Tempo Storm. Loving these drafts for game 5 as we head to Tomb the Spider Queen.
You know what? This is game 5. We're going to bust it out here. And blue is Freedom, where Collusion, in fact, is going to be onto the Ariel. We have Cure played by Genji, or Genji played by Cure. I am slaying it. Anubarak by Zugrug. Dainsky onto Lunara, and Nasmus onto the D.Va. Man, words are suddenly becoming very, very difficult as the night moves on.
Let's see how I can do. June playing Uther Fury on Dahaka. Once again, Cothamluck playing that Gul'dan. Up next, Alarak played by Psalm. And finally, Caterpillar will be playing Arthas, the members of Tempo Storm.
Already going to have that extended lightning, so already indicating that he intends to be into a 4-man, or at least a lane that is not a 1 versus 1, that being Psalm onto the Alarak. Everybody else, they're level 1s. It's going to be Echoed Corruption for the Gul'dan build. Not an unheard of build, it's just one that fell out of flavor quite a long while ago.
But starting to make somewhat of a comeback. And with either of the level 7 talents, either getting Bound by Shadow for the cooldown reduction, or even getting Hunger for Power and taking a little bit longer to build up those stacks, but being able to leave my friend alone, being able to get a lot of punch with those corruptions.
Psalm already missing the combo is not a good sign here for Tempo in game 5. Cannot make those type of mistakes against a team like Team Freedom. It is a risky pick for Tempo, but one that obviously they have the confidence in, but it's going to have to hit that telekinesis into the silence. It's allowing Freedom to gain a minor control over the laning, which is something Tempo should be able to bully. This is what I was talking about. Tempo can make a lot of different laning phases work very effectively. And it seems like they are a bit slower than Team Freedom. Team Freedom has already shown that they have a lot of control. Luckily, Dainsky was not able to stall that out, so Cattle got his 7 gems in. Look at this collapse that we see out of Freedom. They keep the 3-man up to mid, even so much so that, you know, Dahaka was about to transition upward.
June starts to come down to mid. Zugrug Burrow charges out. It's a cautious game from either side so far in this game number 5. Team Freedom have been able to keep that bottom lane steadily pushed thanks to the D.Va and Genji rotation there. And forcing Dahaka to be more stationary until he wants to stock up, looking for kills.
It's just rotation after rotation here for Tempo Storm. Zogrug moved up to top, but they're trying to stop the bleeding. That is the Gul'dan and June there on the Uther, cycling through in rotations. When it comes to level 4s, it doesn't look like anybody's gotten too wild.
No Chaos Reigns, but we have seen more show of force ever since it was buffed. And that is Psalm relying on his ability to hit a full combo on a hero and be able to get a little bit more burst damage out of it.
Better Barbs was the choice there for the Anubarak on the side of Team Freedom.
Nice call there for you.
Yeah, it'll really be able to aid when it comes to delaying for long periods of time. Suddenly forces the target to isolate. You get 2 points of contact around for a delay. Just like a slightly better version there than Stitches. First combo landed here for Psalm. Put out quite a bit of poke onto Genji. I don't think I've actually gotten to play Genji into all rack, but I'm sure it cannot feel too good. Well,
especially if you get hit by a silence in a way that Fury's actually going to be able to stop that, but Nasmus wants to be able to keep self-destruct for something a more important fight anyway. But going back to the Alarak Genji debate, if he's able to hit the combo in a way that keeps Genji from hitting deflect for a little bit of time, that could be enough to follow up with a drag, and then all of the crowd control of Tempo Storm, Genji could be in a world of hurt.
I will say the Psalm has to be able to step up the synergy with some of the prep and other heroes to enable him to hit those combos. He's hit that one onto his own, but whenever it's relying on, you know, a setup from somebody else or even just a raw one into the lane where Arthas gets the follow-up, it feels like he's been unable so far to make contact, and it's going to be crucial for this kind of risky pick once again. Look at that damage, though. Going in onto Psalm, he keeps himself alive. Beautiful mech explosion, too, just curving the bullet right on in there. Freedom find themselves first blood.
They take out Psalm, and that's a little bit of time where he will not be stacking, as well as not being out here for the team. Team Freedom trying to utilize that amount of time to get a turn in and start getting some web weavers toward the 50 necessary, or gems necessary for the first web weaver phase.
Looks like they're going to focus on the turn, and this is them committing the resources. I was wondering if they would wait and try and risk out one more level to better close the gap into the 10 mark and try and enable the web weavers a little bit more, but Freedom is being hasty here, and no surprise there. After those 2 kills, I would be feeling confident as well. It's up to Tempo to be able to stall it out, but they also have a very aggressive comp. They're going to death ball, they're going to group and try and dive past the web weavers and get that explosion. Just mainly because outside of Gul'dan, they don't have much of an argument to be able to rid of these web weavers.
Nasmus is going to take a lot of damage and will get pulled back in just as he comes out. So thankfully, Detainment Strike will make sure that Nasmus can get out. That is going to have to be constant for the team. If Nasmus gets into an unfavorable position where he comes out as D.Va, comes out of the mech, the team, the Detainment Strikes, the knock-up from Anubarak, something has to be there to help get time for him to come out. Things will change. Once he gets Nano Weave suit, he'll become a lot tankier when he comes out, but that's not until 16, and 16 is a long way away. Also, Genji picked up Cyber Shield. Medansky is in trouble.
Is he actually going to go down? Frisbee is the thing that seals the deal. I thought June had that up earlier, but did not use it. Couldn't tell if it just came off cooldown, but either way, Tempo Storm got themselves the kill that they wanted during that web weaver phase. They also have 46 gems already turned in, so about anybody and everybody could drop in a couple more and have a web weaver phase for themselves. It's a bit risky considering Freedom has that half-leveled experience lead, but as long as they can push out the pressure and not fall too far behind in the race to 10, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, that was a really good defensive web weaver phase for Tempo Storm, that they didn't lose any of their fourths, and they were able to get a kill just as the web weaver phase was ending, so that Team Freedom would have to play back and allow for a secondary turn-in phase. Now gives the ball back into Tempo Storm's court. As I was saying, Cyber Shield for Genji is going to help with those combos. After he uses his Cyber Agility, he'll get 50 spell armor for a couple of seconds. That will help out again, since the ability power from those combos of Psalm is going to chunk anybody it hits.
Seems like mid-web weaver, because the 10 hasn't been achieved for Tempo Storm, has been pretty easy clear for Team Freedom. Very good job of using their advantage, even though Tempo Storm is creeping so very close. That's Well, I was talking about with Tempo deciding to get that turn in, you can see June was trying to hesitate and figure out when they wanted to turn it all in, but it cost them a total of 2 web weavers pretty much for free.
Bunny Hop is the choice this time, meaning D.Va really does not want to lose that mech in a bad spot. Thornwood Vine is the choice for Dansky's Lunara. In this case, knowing that there is going to be enough for Ariel to keep safe, just wants to be able to put out that constant damage. Here comes the Bunny Hop in from Nasmus. We'll have an explosion behind this, and there it is. Caterpillars used Army of the Dead, the whole team converging, but a Horrify and Divine Storm on the back line.
Aegis buys a bit of time, though, and now look at that impale hitting 4 members of Tempo Storm. Kalthin falling so very low. Genji going in, doesn't get the kill. The drag, though, locks him down, and now Tempo Storm is turning things around, using the counter-strike there. But man, that damage output from Dansky. Look at Tempo's not done. They're so very weak, and they're confident in moving in. Hello?
Oh my goodness. They're going to turn this right around. Detainment Strike hits. June will be the one to fall. Team Freedom recognized. Tempo Storm stepping out maybe just a bit too far. Will capitalize and taking out Uther. Drag pulls in Zugrug.
Tempo just went mad with power. Wow, that was like, I've never seen
for an Alarak team.
I've never seen a team. Like, I get it. The idea is like, well, we have the man up, you know, we might be able to execute one more, but everybody was so very low. And with a Genji on the other side of the table to risk even one reset, I mean, granted, I guess he was dead at that point in time, so not that big of a risk, but Tempo, man, punished out. There's 57 gems for them, so they have enough to get that turn in, and so does Freedom. So who gets the secondary turn-in? Nice body blocking there for June to make sure that the channel is force interrupted by Kira.
There was some shuriken from Kira to do that you just said. Team Freedom hoping they can get the turn-in, but Psalm is pretty effective at being able to stop him. So many of his abilities can let him do that, including the lightning, which extended lightning was finished earlier on. Zugrug's gonna keep trying as long as he can.
Kalthin that time was the man who threw out the spell. Nobody is putting focus onto that bottom turn in. Everybody is moving up here, up on top, and putting a lot of focus into this cattle. Starts once more, gets to the halfway mark, and he gets it.
Team Freedom in that instance did not seem overly interested in actually getting the turn in. It felt to me like they were just sort of half baiting to see if they could get somebody to step out. I may be wrong, but that's how it felt to me.
I agree with you. When it comes to like body language, I really do believe is a thing in Heroes, and they didn't seem to show any indication of being interested in towards it.
Combo drag afterward, and this is it. They're going after Nasmus if they can. Caterpillars are already on top of her, and they have the counter-strike even as well. They have to use Crystal Aegis as well as the Cocoon. Horrify hits, but it does allow Nasmus to disengage, run away. Now it's just Kira and Collusion who are caught. They have the Swift Strike, and Kira gets back.
Unable to hit the combo with Cattle there and Psalm, but they did a great job of punishing D.Va up in the front lines. Now we're going to see a Webweaver phase over to Tempo Storm. They have Divine Storm still available. They're going to have themselves a counter-strike. The biggest thing here is that it only costs Team Freedom a Cocoon and an Aegis, and both of those have a 20-second difference between that and Tempo Storm's Heroics. Might be something they look to abuse during this Webweaver phase.
Yeah, and D.Va still has her Explosion as well as the Bunny Hop. This is a very real possibility. Team Freedom turn this back around off the back of these Webweavers. Tempo Storm, meanwhile, hoping to open up this battleground as best as they can. They did use 55 gems to ensure that they could get the Webweavers here, but are by no means in the lead in this game. It is a very close Game 5.
All the Webweavers still alive. Freedom's not getting rid of these as fast as they would like to, but Tempo's also not making anything really happen with them other than that of on bottom. They will be able to claim themselves a fort. Top should be dealt with, though, by Team Freedom, and in general, very lackluster Webweaver phase for Tempo Storm.
Yeah, the fact that they have had one more turn-in than Team Freedom, but are tied in experience, is a good indicator.
And almost structures, too. Look at bottom fort. Like, it's not like Freedom hasn't been doing damage to the structures themselves. Like, everything is nearly Freedom is ahead because they have the gems, right? But we know that is a temporary resource, whether that be because of life itself and they end up going down dropping them, or the turn-in. But either way, Tempo has to be a little timid that they have committed so many gems and turned in, and they really haven't made much happen when they themselves are the ones with a lethal composition. And the Gul'dan, I'm going to honestly say that a lot of that comes down to they're running 1-3-1 for some reason with the Web Weavers rather than deathballing. Like, that is what their comp is good at. When you have the Arthas, the Uther, the one Alarak combo seals the deal, gets the pick, but they're not clumping with the Web Weavers. So, like, you can only not clump with the Web Weavers at this stage whenever you have better superior wave clear or superior 1v1s, and neither really exists for Tempo.
Bunny hop. Zugberg behind that too. Wants to save as long as he can, but finally has to go into the self-destruct. Cure using Dragon Blade as well. Caterpillar has been separated from the rest of the team. Still has a couple of ghouls to heal off of. Now this is back into the mech. This is a little bit scarier now as Divine Storm from June steps forward. Crystal Aegis has been used. June will go down, but still has some healing for the team.
June going too far in to be able to get that kill, and punishment is real here for Freedom. But look at that, man. Fury all the way into the back line. He gets the drag, got himself an Ariel.
Cure.
Genji doing his best, but he does not get the reset. It's too late, and now 33 gems are on the ground. Tempo once more as they're looking to deny. Dansky gets dragged. Cawthon, do you have follow-up? Ooh, no, that is not the case. What just happened?
That got very close. The self-destruct went down earlier. D.Va has emergency shielding, which does help. I forgot about that, as well as Nano Weave suit. But D.Va was kind of a problem. Dansky was getting fairly low. Things were still really good. The Aegis was used at the perfect time for collusion. Cure went in, but got caught. Did get the kill that he wanted, but couldn't actually get back out after that. Dropped a whole lot of gems. Team Freedom do still have the capabilities of getting a turn-in, but it is not going to be the turn-in upon turn-in that they could have had before.
That was such beautiful body blocking there from Nasmus. Very well done, and the only reason Team Freedom found themselves this Web Weaver phase. Second Web Weaver phase for Team Freedom, setting the balance now 2-2, not only in games, but again, those Web Weavers. What can Freedom make happen here, as this has been a very slow Tomb of the Spider Queen, at least when looking at, you know, structural integrity here.
2 more stacks necessary, and there it is. Echoed Corruption is done just in time for Ruinous Affliction. Perfectly timed for Cawthon.
It's going to be a colossal power spike. Watch him rip through the health bars there. The stun, though, but Aegis is actually going to be forced out, but the Divine Storm immediately after June sets his team up for the kill. Nice deflect there on top of the counter-strike. Telekinesis pushing away that Mecha Explosion, so much so that it zoned out Cattle, but he kept himself alive.
Absolute perfection here from Tempo Storm that they have been able to get Ariel after the Crystal Aegis. The Divine Storm 2, and now D.Va goes down out of the mech. But this whole time, the Web Weavers have been pushing and getting things done for Team Freedom. They lose their D.Va, they lose their Ariel, but they do take out the remaining forts for Tempo Storm, keeping Freedom in this game.
Freedom, yeah, that was a very good time for them to choose to take a fight, just because nobody on Tempo was able to rid of those side Web Weavers. Now ahead in the structures. The biggest problem is that they find themselves down into the gem department. Only 28 on reserve, 24 turned in for Tempo Storm, and still 50 into their own hands that they're going to be trying to turn in. Conveniently, D.Va will be back close enough to when the Web Weavers or turn-in spots are available to where they can stall this out, goaltended properly. It's just, can Tempo get the turn-in before Freedom hits the point where they got themselves a turn-in?
Cure has got to be feeling the pressure now in this game, that it's game number 5. He's had a couple of times where he's gotten punished for going underneath forts looking for kills, and although he did get a kill that last time, losing 33 gems now, can you imagine if they had those 33 gems right now?
Oh yeah, no, he's got to, honestly, if you went, the minute you make that dive, you'd be like, I took a risk and I thought it was worth it, is all you can say in comms, and then you deal with it, and you look at the VOD, and you talk about why it was good or bad afterwards. But right now, yeah, he's got to feel that pressure, because that was a very high risk, and if it paid off, it would have been well worth it. But now it has cost them a Web Weaver phase into the hands of Tempo Storm. Conveniently though, mid fort still very, very healthy, and that is something that Freedom is thankful for.
Yeah, Freedom are going to have to deal with the experience spike that Tempo Storm gets after these Web Weavers. But as long as they don't lose too much, they keep their keeps alive, there's always hope. Nasmus takes a whole lot of damage, gets self-destruct just in time, but look at the poison damage on all of Team Freedom.
That was absolutely ridiculous, and look at that, all the damage onto Cure, not even an option to Dragon Blade. There was no Aegis, just complete splitting there. Tempo Storm finding the upper hand. I was going to take a minute to comment about how inconvenient that bottom web weaver having to face those giants is a very easy clear to deal with that. But now that Tempo has found themselves cure on that Genji and not have to worry about the Dragon Blade reset while they siege, this is primed and ready for Tempo Storm to take this game and never let go.
And the problem from that was that because Nasmus had been so summarily dealt with, having a self-destruct, but not having Bunny Hop to try to make sure that Tempo Storm is controlled until Cure gets into a good spot for Dragon Blade, there was a panic cocoon hoping that they could save him. And even still, Tempo Storm has not been able to get a keep yet, but they are getting very close to level 20.
What they do have is 20 plus an immediate boss that they can bait. How many people on the side of Freedom can reveal? Not too many. Only, I guess we got Impale. Genji has slight reveal, but overall, what does Tempo want to do? Do they want to actually bait the boss or all in?
I don't know. If they
all in?
Without 20 and against a Horrify.
Love that. Cawthon actually putting the teleport circle outside of it too in case things really do get hairy. He can flank once again from a different angle, maybe drop the Horrify. But it doesn't look like Freedom cares. They're going to let the boss go over to Tempo Storm.
The problem is not just a boss, it's nearly a turn in behind it.
Yeah. Conveniently though, if Tempo decides to focus on the turn-in, they lose the opportunity to possibly end the game here. Tempo does have a comp that all it would take is probably Lunara, Genji, or Ariel. Only 1 to 2 of those, probably 2, need to die. And if they do, it very much could be game for Tempo.
The setup for the defense is good for Team Freedom. They have a self-destruct, and they immediately use it. Samus Strike pushes it out even just a little bit more. Was it the telekinesis? Either way, pushes us out. But now it's over, and Tempo Storm gets right back into the action with their boss taking out the keep.
They haven't done any damage to the boss, though. This is way healthier than they should expect. The 5-man Impale, but it might not matter. Horrify, Bunny Hop hitting all the members. Divine Storm actually not landing onto anyone, but Tempo is not done.
Dragon Blade.
They want to move in. Dragon Blade hacking, slashing. The boss now moving to the core.
Cure goes down. Cure is out of here. Tempo Storm stay alive from the Dragon Blade. The boss gets on top of the core. Team Freedom has to use their Crystal Aegis, and out of that, Collusion's in trouble. Zogruk jumps back in. They are so close to taking out some of the members of Tempo Storm, but Dansky is underneath the boss.
He has no healer left. Ariel is the only one that can keep him alive and unable to do so. Nasmus doesn't have the mech quite yet, but they do get the kill onto Uther. That's post 20. He's got redemption, and beyond all else, Tempo Storm has got themselves the series. They will take it and knock out Team Freedom 3-2-2.
Tempo Storm winning, but it was a close one. Coming down to the wire in game number 5, Team Freedom can feel very happy, I feel. Yes, of course, they lost the series. They won't take the #1 seeding spot in North America, but to be able to beat Gale Force, beat Roll20, and come so close, this close to taking out Tempo Storm, especially after losing the first 2 games, what a series to end in a part 1 with.
Yeah, it was amazing performance coming out from Freedom, and you're right, that is kind of the cherry on top that we get to end and walk away with that series, because it really was the Titan of old North America versus, you know, the young blood that really does seem to be making a name for themselves other than that of like Roll20 through Phase 1. Well fought for Freedom, but in the end, Tempo Storm restores faith into all of its fans. You know, a lot of fans out there have got to be happy that Tempo, after that small, you know, stoop like in skill, trying to figure out and find themselves, not only did they recovered enough to actually take out Freedom here.
And letting through both the Genji and the Diva, and showing that they had put a lot of thought into how to deal with that combination, is going to have to send Freedom back to the drawing board a little bit, because the Alarak plays, although the combos, you know, not getting a lot of kills in the early game, still you could see just why it was so perfect of a setup for them to deal with the Diva and Genji so well.
Yeah, it was really hard the entire game. You were just quite kind of, outside of the lack of advantage gained by Tempo Storm into the Web Weaver phase, when it actually broke down to team fights, it was, you know, if Tempo got what they wanted, specifically just if Alarak hit the combo, surprisingly, it's a different story if he does what his kit is built to do. It really did feel like it was like, how do they stop this? Because Arthas was always sitting there slowing. Diva was just constantly like, I can't really do anything. I want to move in, but I can't move in. It was just really cleverly done all around, and a really nice end to Game 5.
And that is the #1 thing for me for Tempo Storm to take away, is that I absolutely adore that a team like Team Freedom, where we have been praising their team fighting for all of Phase 2, Tempo Storm never came in in and said, we're just going to have to out-macro them. We can't team fight them. We have to take away something else. We have to do something else. We have to go to these large battlegrounds and get a whole bunch of globals because we can't do it. No, Tempo Storm came in and brought the fight to Team Freedom. And although, again, it came down to a wire, they were victorious in the end. So that has to be such a good feeling victory for them.
It's got to be. Where does it? Oh, man. It's just, what does that mean for the future of Tempo is really what I feel like here. Is like, does that mean that it never stops, that it keeps climbing, better, greater, better than ever? Or do we find, is there another moment where it's a plateau, a stoop down, and then we see that heavy climb once more? And if so, when does that hit? Do we experience it in part number 2 of phase 2? Or is it, in fact, later down the road? You know, there's a lot of different things I feel like for Tempo now that they've gotten past this moment for them, you know, and where that ceiling draws and where it stops, I feel like nobody really knows, but it's exciting to know like what happens at the Western Clash, and then hopefully when they return that we don't see that same thing and it's just constant progress from them.
Well, I think you can never really bank on improving just linearly for forever.
Yeah.
There will always be plateaus for you, but the biggest takeaway for Tempo Storm is that they together as a group were able to identify what changes they needed to make in order to further their improvement forward as a team after midseason brawl. They were willing to sacrifice some important series earlier on in order to make sure that those improvements actually were able to go through. You know, they had to come straight in from the midseason brawl and immediately start fighting teams that had all of the time in the world to actually better themselves, like Team Freedom. So they were willing to take those risks. And yeah, it put more pressure on them to perform here later on in the part, but it's fantastic to see that they've done that. And I'm so excited to see how Tempo Storm does now versus Europe and the rest of the regions who will be at the Western Clash.
But then also, I mean, even though it is maybe a more sad story for Freedom, the fact that they were unable to be able to take out Tempo Storm, they still know that they're going to the Western Clash. This team is still going to represent North America internationally, and they are very, very young. Zero of them have actually performed on the international level, period. So that is amazing to be able to hear that, and what they're going to be able to make happen, what they hopefully can learn and kind of bring back. I'm probably more excited for that group specifically to go to international play out of almost any brand new squad North America has ever built in all of competitive heroes, just because theirs was so out of nowhere. Roll20 was the next closest, but I feel like Roll20 had Glorung, and that's cheating. Like, you know what I mean? He's been in the scene too long. This squad...
And he's been on an international stage before.
Exactly. Whereas this one just flat out is just new blood everywhere. And it's just like, all right, let's see what you got. You know, is this the beginning of a new era for North America? Maybe. I was going to say probably not, but I feel like that's a little bit, you know, nobody really knows. It's just, we can be hopeful.
Yeah, I am thrilled beyond all reason that Tempo Storm have been able to prove to everyone today that the changes that they made are working for them and that it's going to allow them to make improvements in the long run. We're waiting on June to be able to talk to him and hear about some of those changes and where they feel like their strength lies as they get ready for the Western Clash. But we now know all 8 teams for the Western Clash. So let's take a look at those teams while we wait for our winner's interview. Gale Force Esports, Tempo Storm, and Team Freedom. Those are your 1, 2, and 3 seeds from North America. Meanwhile, Fnatic, Team Expert, and Team Liquid represent Europe. And once again, we will see Nomia and Red Canids returning from Australia, New Zealand, and Latin America, respectively.
Nobody count out Nomia and Red Canids. Those guys have been working their butts off since the mid-season brawl to come to the Western Clash and claim a name for themselves. Nomia did it at the last one and got even better at the mid-season brawl. I am looking forward to where they end up landing. That, for me, other than Team Freedom, the next hypest team for me at the Western Clash is going to be Nomia. They have so much development over the long run. I really like what they've done.
And you know, their region has been really interesting to watch. I was able to catch up on their regional, and Nomia they barely made it. Darksided brought them to the final game, and they even were able to put Nomia into the losers bracket. And so it was down to, again, the wire for just so many teams, but Nomia had to deal with a ton. Lava Wave, things got crazy in Australia and New Zealand. So if you didn't get a chance to watch that regional, you guys should check it out. Let's check in with June, who is now ready to join us for his winner's interview. Hey June, who's that you got with you?
It's my dog. My dog.
Oh, what's the dog's name?
Corey.
Very cute. Congratulations! Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That series.
How are you guys feeling? how confident were you guys going into that series that you guys would be able to beat Freedom?
Honestly, for some reason, I feel really confident past couple of weeks because our team didn't really perform as well. I mean, performed well at mid-season and early HGC. So we really talked to our team and then like how to improve. And I really feel like that loss, it hurt a lot, but it really made us improve a lot.
Yeah, you guys have improved a ton, and to see where you guys are at now just makes me so excited to see you guys at the Western Clash. Especially, man, your performance yourself in this series was just amazing. How are you guys approaching now, getting ready for the Western Clash in a couple of weeks?
I think we're gonna keep doing what we've been doing. It's really practice and honestly for me, I feel like I didn't perform as well at mid-season because I think I was complacent. Like people call me like a supporter. And I think I thought I didn't really need to practice much. So, but this time those losses really made me like motivated and really practice because right now everyone's like improving really really quick. For example, look at No Tomorrow and Team Freedom. Like they really showed up. So you're gonna keep growing and you're not gonna underestimate any team. You're not gonna be complacent anymore. And we're just gonna keep winning and winning.
Awesome. That is just great to hear.
For me, I've got to ask about just North America as a whole. Obviously, you guys being one of the 3 teams going to the Western Clash. Do you feel like, since it's pretty apparent throughout phase number 2, a lot of teams been giving in a lot of work to see positive changes, you guys being one, coming to light here even today against Freedom, but Freedom being another major one. Do you feel like North America maybe has a better chance than it has had internationally? Do you feel like there is going to be a closer and more competitive gap, or just what's your perspective on that?
I honestly believe right now Annie has a really good chance to kind of show up. I think we're really kind of growing as a region. I don't know how fast EU is growing, but like I think we're in a kind of good road to be successful as a region. So I believe we have I think gap is closer or going to be closer than past international.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you, June.
Well, June, thank you so much for joining us for the interview. Congratulations again, being able to take out Team Freedom. Gave you the 2nd seed. Yeah, it was an awesome series, so thank you for that as well. Any shout-outs before you go celebrate and get back to work?
Shout out to my team, of course. Like we really worked hard for this. So thank you for thank you for what you've been doing, and of course, thank you guys for casting. Thank you Twitch for, Twitch chat, I guess. Yeah. And of course, our awesome org Tempo and their sponsors that I hope I don't forget. Let's see. Wait. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
All the time. No.
Okay,
This is important. Andre would be upset if you didn't do this.
Yeah, for sure. The Secure Labs, Drop, SkyTech Gaming, and Twitch. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Got it.
Thanks, June. Congrats again.
Thank you. Bye.
You know what I think? Tempo Storm needs to take a lesson from Raynad's sellout status. He needs to give a solid course. I know this because I was one of the players playing under Tempo and Raynad, and I never got a sellout course. That guy, 10 out of 10 in that. And imagine the sellout levels we would get in every single interview.
He's pretty good at it.
He is. Somebody's got to give him a ring. Let him know. Either way, June, adorable and humble as ever.
Yes, but it's good to hear that from him, but he deserves to celebrate because as we check out the standings,